Hello, I'd welcome you to my video on making a homemade tarp. The first step obviously is measuring and cutting your fabric. I'm using 1.1 ounce silpoly from Ripstop by the Roll. It's on my website, you can get it. And so I did 11 feet and I just kept the length of the fabric, or the width of the fabric, I guess, 54 inches I think it is. But I just put two of them together, so you cut two pieces that are 11 feet long, and don't worry about cutting down anything else, just the length. So then you put them together and you're going to sew them down the middle, so you're going to make a flat felled seam ridge line. So here I am, I'm about an inch from the edge. That's where you want to do. Just do a straight stitch all the way down one side with both of them together on top of each other. And you can see how not straight I'm sewing. But just do the best you can. So when you're done, now you're going to take one of those edges, because there's two edges, right? You take one of them and you're going to cut it in half. And then you're going to roll the other long edge over the short edge. So you're going to fold it over it, and then you're going to fold it over again. And that'll cover up both seams. And then here I start pinning, just to hold it so I can get it into the sewing machine. You can, if you wanted to, you can pin it all the way down the ridge line. But I just did a couple pins, like 3 or 4. And then later on I folded it by hand. I'll show it to you. But here I am pinning. So then once you have it pinned, you want to sew a straight seam, a straight stitch, just down the side. And I'm kind of pulling the two halves apart so that, because this is where your seam is going to be stretched, so I kind of stretched it a little bit, get it in the right position. And you can see me taking out each pin, and now here I'm just rolling it by hand. Once I have my sewing machine have the needle down position, so it stops in the needle down always, and it's easy to just roll it and then run it again. And this is the end of the seam, and then I do a quick lock stitch. Notice how my fabric is not even. That's just because I didn't measure it correctly, and I'm not the best sewer. Still work though. So then I'm going to take Gros Grain, and I bought the Gros Grain at Joann Fabrics, and I'm making tabs, and these are going to go on the ridge line. These aren't necessary, but I thought that they were, because my ridge line is not a catenary curve, and so these tabs will help make that difference up so they're always straight. So that's why I put the tabs on, to kind of pull my ridge line up. So now I'm sewing the tabs on, and I sewed 3 of them on. One goes right in the middle of the tarp, and then the other 2 are evenly spaced between the middle and the edges. So there's 3 tabs in the middle. Of course there's going to be tabs on the end, but I'll show you that later. Basically, and there's nothing underneath it, it's just sewn directly onto the fabric. There's not a lot of stress in these, so you don't need to really reinforce them. They're just holding the tarp up a little. And that's what it looks like. Just a little loop sewed on both sides, right on the ridge line. So now I'm going to reinforce my corner tieouts and my ridgeline, my end of the ridgeline tieouts. And so I want to use this thicker fabric, and it's stuff I had laying around that I bought a long time ago. It's a lot thicker. It is ripstop. I think it's ripstop poly as well. It's not waterproof, but it's thick, and it'll be a great reinforcement. So here I'm cutting out a whole bunch of them, and then of course after I cut out this many of them, I realized I only needed to really cut out maybe 3 or 4 squares instead of 9, because I only needed, you cut each square in half, and you only need 6 triangles total. So the triangles, you still need to hide the edge so that it can't come out, and so that's what I do. I just fold it over once, and then I sew the edge up, just a real quick straight stitch on each edge that's going to be exposed or not sewn in. So these are the Ridgeline ones, so I need to do two edges, and then later I'll show you the corner tieouts. You only need to do one edge like this. All done. Doesn't look straight at all, but hey. Okay, so now I'm going to sew it on. I'm going to leave an inch from the edge, and I'm going to sew it. It's right on the ridge line with the triangle facing, well, you can see how it's facing. And all I'm doing here is I'm just holding it in place. So I only need to sew, I don't need to sew all of it on, just enough to, just the 2 sides, just to hold it in place for later. See, 1 inch from the edge. Now I'm going to do the corners. You do all 4 corners. So see, I only need to do 1 edge there. That's the only one you need to fold over and sew. The other 2 you can leave open. And then I sew it onto the corner same way. You only need to do that 1 edge. You only need to sew the 1 edge that you just folded over at this stage. It's just to hold it in place. See, nice crooked. Now this is why you're an inch from the edges, because you're gonna roll it. You do a 1/2 inch roll, and then you roll it again, so that way that your edge is buried. It's a hem. And so what I do here is I pin the first, just like everything else, I pin a couple, about 1 foot or 1.5 feet, just to get it started well in the machine. And then once I've done that, I start the rest of I just run it around, but I don't pin the whole thing. I just pin about 1.5 feet to start me with. Then I could just do it while it's running through the machine. Is stop every once in a while, roll, sew, stop, roll, sew. That's what I did. So now I'm doing it by hand. Stop, roll, sew it in. Simple as that. Don't you love walking feet? That little black thing in the back is a walking foot, and it really helps the fabric run through the machine smoothly. So basically you go all the way around your huge tarp. Here I'm turning a corner. You don't take it out of the machine and turn the corner, you just leave it in and figure out how to roll it while you're turning the corner. So like I said, you're going to go all the way around the whole tarp. So now I'm putting my corner tieouts, and I'm using that same Gros Grain that I bought at Joann Fabrics. It's a lighter, it's pretty light, but it's the right color, and I don't need it to be too heavy duty. But it's heavier duty than ribbon. It's just a little heavier than ribbon. And you saw me, I burned the edges. I like to burn the edges, and here's the line lock that I'm using. So I sew that on. So I put it on, and then sew that onto my corner reinforcement. put it on straight. And I like to pin them. Makes it easier. So then when you're sewing, they're all lined up. And I just made up I just thought of, well, how would I sew this on? So I just did a whole bunch of stitches back and forth, kind of to get the reinforcement sewn better on, and then also, I don't know, I just sewed it a bunch. That's kind of the, that's how you sew reinforcements and tie-outs on. You just do a lot of stitches. You have to be careful with the lighter. You can melt your fabric. I did that a couple times, and I had to patch it. Then I stopped doing it. So there you go. The bottom, the reinforcements on the bottom of the tarp. And there's the ridgeline. I do it the same way, just in that fashion. And I used a fatter one. And then I did tie-outs in the middle to pull out the middle of the tarp. And those ones are reinforced with some other Gros Grain that I had laying around. And then I sewed tie-outs on the edge, and I did not reinforce them with anything. I just folded them over and sewed them right on the edge of my tarp. So now you're done, and it's time to waterproof. And I mixed 100% silicone with mineral spirits. And because the silicone doesn't sit really well in the, once you open a container of silicone, it goes bad pretty quick. So I just bought a small container. I actually didn't even need like a quarter of this stuff, but I just dumped the whole thing out, put just enough mineral spirits to get it kind of soupy. It wasn't real runny, but it wasn't thick either. I guess it was more like toothpaste. No, maybe it was thinner than toothpaste. About now is when I realized that I should be wearing gloves. So when you do this, you need to wear gloves. Oh look, I went and got gloves on. See, I'm only stupid once. Make sure you wear gloves. Make sure you do it outside. Notice I'm doing it outside. That's important. The fumes are pretty strong. Even if you get the odorless mineral spirits, you still don't want that in your house. And so of course I pick a really windy day. Set the tarp up, and the wind's just blowing it. I didn't set it up as tight as I could. I tightened it up a little bit later though, so it's not tight here, and just definitely down the ridge line. But I use a little paintbrush the cheap one at Walmart, and just paint it on, push it into all your threads. Anywhere you sewed, you need to put silicone. And I kind of did 2 coats, so I did one coat and then let it dry for a couple minutes, and I did another coat. Alright, so here's the final product. The tarp's nice and taut. And you can see that I put those on there, those S-beaners, and there's 3 of them. That's the middle one. I just split the difference. Those, I saw you show pictures, but they're somewhere in the middle. And then these guys are split. That's the middle one, and these are just split the difference. I don't think I'll use them that much. This is how that works. You can just pull and tighten or loosen up like this. Pretty cool. But solid ridgeline. So let's car camping right now. So
is that our tent?
All right. Well, I'm underneath it's raining, so I'm sitting underneath the tarp. So far, it's not leaking. So it's a rainy night. We're gonna test how this tarp is doing in the rain. So far, no leaks. Hopefully it rains all night and then I'll get a good test. Alright, so I tested the tent in the rain, as you saw, and no leaks. So it's great. So these last pictures are just to show you color contrast, because I picked a coyote brown color. And the tent works. Watch my video about the net tent that I built for this. Thanks for watching.